girls grew up wanting to be actresses, some famous singers, some mukbang ASMR influencers. But not me. I wanted to be a secret agent. Or at least I did. Until I stumbled upon a 2014 CNN article titled "The CIA has been spending $300 million waging a covert campaign of torture." Yeah, I was heartbroken. Turns out these days, being a secret agent is a lot less martinis and a lot more water. Boarding. In all seriousness, this article details the CIA's routine practices of enhanced interrogation techniques and how far they have gone to accomplish this. It's interesting how government programs have evolved in this way and how government officials, namely Dick Cheney, constantly defend these acts of torture as the actions of dedicated professionals who have saved American lives. This line of reasoning actually began back in the 16th century with Machiavelli and his highly acclaimed book, The Prince. Its 22,000 words, put shortly, is a testimony to how ends should justify means. And the CIA, like many others, have fervently applied this idea to its own operations. And that's my concern. Far too often, we believe that ends justify means. So first, we will investigate the causes, then study the aftermath before finally deducing by what means we can solve this. In the words of Dick Cheney, the U.S. is an exceptional nation, unmatched in the history of the world in our goodness and greatness, in our contributions to global freedom, to justice and peace. Cheney only finds this true because of the success and prosperity that has masked all of the flawed inner workings of this nation. Similarly, Machiavelli promoted his theory that ends justify means by amplifying the success warranted from committing these less than honorable actions. 500 years later, we continue to do this by rewarding those who succeed and blinding ourselves to what heinous things are really being done. We now mistakenly equate success to righteousness, and this happens a lot more often than comes to eye's sight. Being the world's second largest marine oil company, Halliburton has been charged on multiple occasions for bribery, corruption, causing the largest marine oil spill in history, and just maybe setting into motion the Iraq War. And the former CEO of this multinational corporation is none other than Vice President Dick Cheney. In 1991, then Defense Secretary Dick Cheney signed an $8.5 million contract to Halliburton on behalf of the Pentagon. He became CEO 4 short years later. During the Iraq War, whom Dick Cheney was a main pioneer of, Halliburton was rewarded a $7 billion exclusive contract, and Cheney received $2 million in return. 200,000 Iraqi civilians lost their lives in this war. Shopkeeper Ahmed Khalid would later call what he witnessed in a car bombing in Baghdad, where 400 people died, in what he felt like a swimming pool of blood. Yet Iraq had been made a profit center, and Halliburton is now more profitable and prosperous than ever. Dick Cheney also claims that we are, as a matter of undeniable history, the greatest force the world has ever known. Thinking in this way is very harmful, and it was proven harmful by the very family Machiavelli had devoted his book to. In 1478, Jacopo de Pazzi failed to overthrow the Medicis, and in punishment he was tortured, hanged, and then buried, but afterwards his body was dug up, thrown into a ditch, and dragged throughout Florence. This, like many other acts of violence, was a display of power for the Medicis to assert dominance over Florence. And the U.S., 500 years later, is doing similar things with the people of Iraq. Abu Ghraib was a U.S. military prison located 20 miles from Baghdad. Most of the several thousand prisoners detained there were civilians, and some of them were picked up into random military sweeps and at highway checkpoints. In a Times interview, General Kapinski would claim that living conditions in this prison were better than at home, and that at one point the military had been concerned that the prisoners wouldn't want to leave. This, however, was not the truth. Abu Ghraib would later become notorious for what Taguba of the New Yorker described as sadistic, blatant, and wanton criminal abuses. Photo evidence and survival accounts revealed the vile living conditions, physical abuse, and sexual humiliation at this prison. Officers sexually assaulted prisoners, used dogs to bite and intimidate them, and would pour phosphoric liquid over their bodies. Even after release, survivors would relive every day of their time in Abu Ghraib with flashbacks to the terror, pain, and humiliation that they were forced to endure. All they want is some kind of justice, but they never got this. The people who gave the orders were never punished, and these innocent prisoners were broken inside and out. Former detainee Maji would later state that what had been American's good deed would have later become his curse and left him only half human. When asked about the lawlessness in Baghdad after U.S. troops had captured the capital, Rumsfeld replied, "Stuff happens, and freedom is untidy. We do not need to accept a form of corruption in the name of overturning another. To abstain from Machiavelli's theory that ends should justify means we need to admit that these are merely twisted narratives, self-serving justifications, to admit to the impact and severity of our actions, to see the whole picture, and to take responsibility. Only then can we truly abstain from the Machiavellian theory, and can we really achieve peace and security." For much too long, politics and society has abided by the saying that ends justify means, and in the process we have become negligent to the corruption and have deprived others of the liberty that we once promised. Machiavelli's The Prince is a melancholic description of power at his age and embodies a corruption that we must move away from. And this may not be easy, but as Bruce Lee, an experienced secret agent himself, once said, mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit. We can start today by admitting to our faults, recognizing them, and remembering that ends can never justify means. Thank you.